Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I move the motion in my name as it is shown on the order paper. I submit.
Thank you. 2 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second.
Thank you very much. I now call upon Honorable Hwange to move his motion accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise today on behalf of the Portfolio Committee on Local Government, Public Works and National Housing to present a report on the petition from Tinashe Matika and Kosiko Nasibanda of Hwange on the dual local government administration in Hwange. On my report, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll cover the introduction, then the findings, observations, and the recommendations. So I'll start the introduction. According to Section 149 of the Constitution, read together with the Standing Order number 191, Appendix E, every citizen and permanent resident of Zimbabwe has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including the enactment, amendment, or repeal of legislation. The committee received a petition from Mr. Tinashe Matika and Mr. Kosiko Nasibanda, residents of Hwange concession area. The petitioners appealed to Parliament to address the plight of residents in 11 wards of Hwange concession, who seek incorporation into Hwange local body. They expressed concern that the current local government setup in Hwange constituents excludes approximately 20,000 residents from being recognized as stakeholders and beneficiaries of service delivery mandate of Hwange local body. The petitioners further noted that despite the exclusion, the affected residents contribute to public funds through taxes, actively participate in the national electoral process, yet they remain deprived of the benefits of local governance. The petition was subsequently referred to the Portfolio Committee on Local Government, Public Works and National Housing, which undertook an inquiry into the matter and produced this report with its findings, observations, and recommendations. Petitioner's prayer. The petitioners beseeched Parliament to exercise its oversight and investigate and rectify the following. Review the policy that subjects Hwange Urban, Hwange Central Constituency under dual administration. Secondly, inquire into the operational modalities of the current government matrix of Hwange with a view of making not only the necessary policy recommendations and amendments, but to devise a proposed timeline onto the incorporation of Hwange colliery concession residential areas into the jurisdiction of Hwange local body as prescribed by Section 274 of Chapter 14 of the Constitution. Objectives: to assess the impact of current governance structure on service delivery in the Hwange concession areas. The methodology which was used: the committee conducted public hearings and received oral and written submissions from key stakeholders, including the following: Hwange Local Board, Hwange Rural District Council, Hwange Colliery Company, Zimbabwe Power Company, the National Railways of Zimbabwe, as well as residents from the affected communities in Hwange. The committee's findings: Hwange Rural District Council submissions. The committee was informed that Hwange concession area does not fall within the proclaimed jurisdiction of the Hwange local body, but is legally under Hwange Rural District Council as defined by the 2022 Zimbabwe Electoral Commission ZEC delimitation report. Through this report, ZEC placed the concession area under Hwange Central Constituency for electoral purposes, while the other wards of Hwange Rural District Council fall under Hwange West Constituency. In this regard, Hwange RDC argued that this arrangement was made solely to meet electoral threshold, which does not constitute dual governance as alluded by the petitioners. Hwange Rural District Council was concerned that abrupt incorporation of the concession area into Hwange local body would have serious financial implications and the viability of the local authority. It was gathered that the local authority had already planned its local economic development strategy and its master plan according to its geographical boundaries expounded in the ZEC report. Furthermore, Hwange RDC argued that the urbanized nature of the concession area fits within Hwange RDC's broader development strategy, which aligns with Vision 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. The committee gathered that Hwange Colliery concession, being resource-rich, currently contributes to the welfare of 5 chiefs of Hwange district, and this benefit could be disrupted if jurisdiction is transferred to Hwange local body. The committee found out that Hwange Colliery Company Private Limited was responsible for all service provision within the concession areas. These included 100% subsidized accommodation, water, electricity, and infrastructure maintenance for its employees and other inhabitants. It was argued that by Hwange Colliery Company that service provision within the 11 wards under its purview was better to the 4 wards areas under the superintendence of Hwange local body. Then Hwange local body submissions. Hwange local body informed the committee that the 11 wards under the concession areas experienced scattered and uncoordinated developments due to the lack of local planning authority. It was argued that this uncoordinated development was stifling the growth and expansion of Hwange urban. Arguments for incorporation were stressed on the necessity of establishing orderly planning, zoning, and land use control tailored to community needs through master plans and local development plans. Hwange local body argued that the concession areas under the stewardship of the Hwange Colliery Company lacked adequate bylaws to govern its traffic system, resulting in disorderly and haphazard traffic management within the Hwange CBD. It was echoed that the proposed incorporation by Hwange local body would subject the concession areas to HLB's bylaws. This would in turn enable efficient and orderly traffic management and coordinated road planning management. The committee further gathered that Hwange Colliery Company Limited, HCCL, whose core mandate is mining, is currently burdened with providing municipal services. Incorporation would allow HCCL to focus on mining while HLB assumes responsibility for municipal services in line with its statutory mandate. Hwange Colliery Company Limited submissions. The committee established that the concession area was privately titled land owned and managed by HCCL, although lying within the jurisdiction of Hwange Rural District Council. Payments of land development levies to Hwange District Council is based on Section 95 of the Rural District Councils Act, Chapter 2918. The committee established that 11 wards within Hwange concession area under the administration of Hwange Colliery Company have their elected councillors sitting under Hwange local body. This misnomer was creating decision-making impasses within councillors under Hwange concession were making decisions in a jurisdiction outside their electoral boundaries. This governance impasse was as a result of the 2022 ZEC delimitation exercise. The HCCL, as a private entity, fears the risk of losing its assets as well as land under title without compensation and operational instability that will potentially arise from incorporation process. A critical aspect was raised by HCCL, alluding to the fact that forced incorporation would transfer 35% of the Hwange's balance sheet assets, which are tied in infrastructure, amenities, and utilities, including roads, lighting, water, sewer systems, and housing to Hwange local body. The company fairly argued that incorporation without proper agreement, consultation, and consensus among the parties involved will lead to the company's closure and also will bring negative ripple effects on the socio economic fabric of its workers and community. Submission from the National Railways of Zimbabwe. The NRZ submitted that it does not object to the incorporation of Hwange urban constituency. However, the company retaliated that guarantees must be given to it to ensure that it continues to control all the land under its ownership, including the railway station facilities and the staff houses built on its land. The company argued that by having control over land adjacent to the railway line and station, the company will continue to grow and expand as per its future business development and growth model. Submissions from the residents of Hwange. Hwange residents expounded that incorporation of Hwange urban constituency will give them ownership of company houses they currently occupy within the Hwange concession areas. Furthermore, it was emphasized that the incorporation will assist in transforming the colonial type of one-roomed housing and communal toilets to modernized housing units in sync with the current urban trends and dynamics. However, the HCCL clarified that the properties belonged to the entity and it will remain company-owned as they are recorded as in its balance sheet as core operational assets. Other residents argued that the incorporation into Hwange local body would impose stiffer rates and levies on Hwange Colliery Company employees who are currently 100% subsidized on all expenses. The committee was informed that this eventual imposition of new rates and levies would lead to significant reduction of disposable income and worsen living standards. The residents informed the committee that Hwange local body does not have the capacity to take over the 11 wards within the concession area and properly provide adequate services. It was highlighted that the body did not have adequate staff in key areas such as engineering and planning to take over the enormous task currently being administered by HCCL. With this in mind, it was echoed by the residents that any possible discussion on incorporation must take place after significant capacity building of human and technical resources at Hwange local body. Furthermore, calls for an implementation framework based on stakeholder engagement, consensus, and capacity enhancement were made loud and clear by the residents of Hwange. Intergovernmental fiscal transfers, devolution funds. The committee gathered that the 11 wards located within privately owned land under the Hwange Colliery Company were not receiving any government funding or intergovernmental fiscal transfers, devolution funds. The committee was informed that the disqualification of concession area from receiving government funding was shortchanging the residents of the area from receiving much needed financial support to augment the existing service provision gaps. The residents of the concession area underscored that every Zimbabwean had a right to benefit from intergovernmental fiscal transfers. Then, legal issues on incorporation. The committee gathered that the local governance problem currently transpiring in Hwange had been discussed by the local leadership and the then Minister of Local Government and Public Works, Honorable July Mori. The minister had indicated that a commission of inquiry was needed to expedite the incorporation of Hwange and the consultation of key stakeholders. However, the committee found out that the commission of inquiry was yet to undertake the important exercise. This delay had stalled the process of rectifying the local governance impasses and the issues causing the grievances between the stakeholders in Hwange. Committee observations. Section 71 of the Constitution protects HCCL's property rights, preventing compulsory deprivation of assets without compensation. To this end, incorporation of HCCL's private lands into HLB jurisdiction without compensation will not only be unconstitutional and unlawful, but most importantly, an infringement on property rights. The residents residing within Hwange concession area are caught in a governance puzzle. Although administratively under Hwange RDC, the area is politically represented by councillors under Hwange local body. This arrangement unfortunately excludes them from meaningful participation in policy and decision making as rightfully echoed by the petitioners. The committee observed that Hwange Colliery Company and the Hwange RDC were not in support of changing the current local government matrix through the incorporation of Hwange concession areas into Hwange local board. Arguments on property rights, investments made and revenue generation, issues raised by RDC were valid and must be given serious consideration by the executive. Incorporation will have possible negative effects on Hwange RDC's revenue and derail its development agenda set out in its master plan and local economic development policy. Hwange has a delicate local governance system that needs a thorough inquiry by the executive to fully understand the ligaments of its very architecture. Hwange is fast growing and booming due to the rapidly expanding mining activity, which requires urgent intervention for its upgrading to a thriving urban industrial hub. However, the current setup on what the committee observed as a disjointed urban administration system undermines any meaningful progress towards having a vibrant urban system which responds to the needs of the growing population. and the fast developing need for good urban governance. Hwange local body does not have the capacity to captain the whole Hwange urban constituency. Once the incorporation is implemented, the capacity of the local body must first be augmented through deliberate intergovernmental strategies and the implementation of a transitional framework bolstered on urban planning fundamentals. The disjuncture of the 11 awards under the concession area represented by councillors who under the Hwange local body is an anomaly which needs immediate intervention. The ZEC delimitation report placed the citizens under the Hwange concession area under pursued local representation where councillors have no means to deliver any meaningful input into issues affecting the residents. The committee further observed that the concession areas currently do not have access to funding streams such as the Public Sector Investment Program, PSIP, and the government loans which individual concession units cannot access. Committee recommendations. The committee recommends that a commission of inquiry be established by the Minister of Local Government and Public Works to ascertain the feasibility of incorporating Hwange urban under one local government by 30 September 2026. The committee recommends that adequate modalities be put in place to ensure fair compensation to HCCL should the concession areas be incorporated in the Hwange local body. In line with Section 71 of the Constitution, any lawful incorporation must be done by just and adequate compensation for both movable and immovable assets of HCCL. The Minister of Local Government and Public Works must review the ZEC delimitation report and address the incoherence of administrative boundaries between Hwange local body and the Hwange RDC by 31 December 2026. The committee recommends that the incorporation of concession areas into Hwange local body be pursued and be completed by 31 December 2026 to facilitate the following. The upgrading of housing and the sanitation infrastructure. This would enable governments and development partners to implement targeted wash programs that improve access to clean water, functional sewer systems, and modern ablution facilities. Also, to enable access to national funding streams, including the PSIP, significant, the IGFT, and the government loans, which will strengthen service delivery and infrastructure development in Hwange. To establish orderly urban planning and land use management in the concession area through the adoption of master plans and local development plans tailored to community needs. To ensure orderly traffic management, coordinated provision of public infrastructure, and integrated urban growth across Hwange. In conclusion, the committee recognizes that Hwange concession area faces a significant governance gap, being administratively under Hwange Rural District Council, while politically represented by councillors sitting under Hwange local body. This arrangement has limited the residents' participation in local decision-making, restricted access to essential services, and hindered infrastructure development. Hwange is a prime urban area with all hallmarks to be accorded a municipality status in a shortest period of time. Effective incorporation accompanied by adequate planning, capacity building, and just compensation. We will align the area's development with the national strategies and sustainable urban growth principles. So I submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Janji. The question before the House is a motion by Honorable Janji. This House considers and adopts the report of the Portfolio Committee on Local Government and National Housing on the petition from Tinashe Matika and Kosikona Spanda on the dual local government administration in Hwange. Is there any further debate? Honorable
Nyabuyezwa.
Nyabuyezwa, yes. Honorable Nyabuyezwa.